Hi folks, Dave Schmidt here. It's the evening of October 13th as I'm coming to you for this weekly message. First, I want to say thank you so much to all the wonderful people who attended the workshop in Kansas City last Saturday. I've done 3 workshops in the last month after about a 4-month break. And the people that are mentioning some stuff and the comments that are coming forward are clearly reflecting that there has been a shift, that there has been a change. As I mentioned to you at the Atlanta workshop about 4 weeks ago, 2 weeks ago in Santa Ana, and then again in Kansas City, I had asked the people, are you noticing a shift and change because of what we call this energy, this wave X energy that had come into our planet? And about 70 to 80% of the people all said yes. Well, I'm feeling it and I'm really noticing it. Now, if you notice, I had mentioned last week also, I had made a special trip to visit this special lady by the name of Susan, who does what is called angelic activations. And Susan had said that when you go through the procedure with her, when you go through the session with her, it takes about 2 weeks before you fully, completely, really notice the difference. Because what's happening is, it's this literally this very high, heavy dose of photon light energy that is coming into your body, and it comes to her through the angels that she has the ability to contact and communicate with and talk with on a regular basis. And what happens is this energy literally integrates deep into the cells within your body. And that takes about 2 full weeks. Well, in those 2 weeks, you also can go through a tough period of time because all the old stuff is getting pushed out while the new stuff is coming in. This new energy comes in, and what it does, it displaces and pushes out all the old stuff. The old stuff of lower vibrations, the old stuff of your old, what I call energetic imprints from traumas of your past and stuff like that. And I said this week, I would talk about what would be considered some of the core issues of how we really get to the root of some of the things that take place there. But I want to make a slight shift. What I want to do this week is just give a personal story. I want to talk about some of the things that I have personally learned in the last year and what's really taking place in this shift and change in conjunction with how I'm noticing it in the people that are attending the workshops and how they're expressing the differences in their own lives. We all started this process, if you were with me, about 2 years ago, and it was all evolving around the RVGCR. It was evolving around money. And we all entered into that with high expectations, certain hopes and desires to see certain things happen. And there's been delays in a lot of that stuff that has happened. But here's what I'm noticing. There's always seems to be a timing, of a divine timing, of shifts and changes within our lives. We always seem to want to have them happen sooner, but yet in God's time, it's always perfect. What I'm noticing in the last 2 years is that the vast majority of us, we're becoming more settled. We're becoming more peaceful. We're becoming more confident. We're stepping into a greater assurance. And there's a sense of purpose, focus, determination, assertiveness in a healthy way about what to do when the shift comes for us, when funds are released. Lives are beginning to change. I'm noticing also there's a difference in the quality, and I want to be careful how I say that, but I really truly mean quality in the people who are attending the workshops. When I started 2 years ago, it was focused pretty much on the money, and a lot of people are attending because of the money. But now it's shifting where they're focusing on being people of a purpose and a sense of mission, and the funds are secondary. Understanding there's a sense of a divine calling and purpose in our lives. It was interesting at the Kansas City workshop how the people really began to sense that. Now, I've had this wonderful new lady whose name is Karen, and she's been assisting me in the workshops, and she's just been saying, Dave, I'm noticing a difference. It's like the people are there on the edge of their seats all the way to the very end at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. They're capturing what's taking place. They're hungry to learn, and they want to get a feel of what is taking place. The most common comment I'm getting from the people in the last 3 workshops is there's a shift in the energy. There's a sense of direction, purpose, mission, hope, desire, in contrast to wonder, kind of anxiety, or fear or wondering how it was going to happen. The energy is shifting. It clearly is shifting, is what's taking place. I want to share with you something that I've learned also within myself. In this process, I'm becoming much, much more clear about having a sense of who am I? We always have been told that one of our greatest issues about being human beings is that we really don't know who we are. Down inside, we are all divine beings. We have the divine spirit within all of us. There is the work and the power and the life of the Holy Spirit that resides within every single one of us. But yet we don't seem to live our daily lives in that manner. Life gets frustrated. Life sometimes takes on a sense of discord, and there's a lot of pain in there, and there's a lot of frustration and a lot of anxiety that takes place. Anger begins to develop. Habits begin to take place. We have friends and family that have certain drug addictions or alcohol addictions, or all kinds of other problems seem to arise. And down inside there is this lack of peace, and we seem to wonder, what is life all about? At the very root of all of that is we don't really know who we are. We have forgotten who we are. As a human race who also has this divine part of us, we have seemed to have forgotten who we really are. And life, more than anything else, is about that quest. It's about the quest of remembering. Remembering once again who we are deep down in the very core parts of our soul. When we begin to remember who we are, life begins to take clarity. Life begins to take on purpose. Life begins to have a sense of joy. And more than all of that, life begins to take on what is called that peace of God that passes all understanding. You know, but for about 30 years of my life after my training in seminary training, like most of all of us that have been trained in evangelical seminaries, I didn't believe in reincarnation. Most of our Western culture does not believe in it, and we have a tendency to either skirt around it or to ignore it, and it's not a part of the mainstream discussions of our culture. When I was in college about 35, 40 years ago, and I remember my senior year in my undergraduate work, I was in a comparative religions class, and I did a paper on comparing the various views of afterlives of all the major religions within the world. And at that time, I had done a lot of reading on this whole concept about life after life, of people who had to have near-death experiences. At that time, it was a fairly new concept. It had not really become accepted into the mainstream media, and to step out into that was basically to step out into being on the cutting edge of something new that was developing. Well, here we are today, 35 to 40 years later, and it's commonly accepted that we have what is called near-death experiences. That literally the body will actually, in a physical means, will die, and the soul will leave the body for a temporary period of time. The body is classified as being dead physically, but yet the soul will return to the body, and so we have what is called a near-death experience. It's now commonly understood as a common practice because it has happened with millions and millions of people. It happened to my mother when I was a little boy. Well, the whole concept now of reincarnation is beginning to move into that area where it's finally starting to be openly accepted. Every major religion, every major what you call thought process of faith issues, almost all indigenous cultures through thousands and thousands of years of history believed in reincarnation, with one exception, what is called Western Christianity, that goes back to the original formation of the original Catholic Church as what is called the Council of Nicene in 325 AD. Prior to that, for the first 325 years of what you would call the history of Christianity, they all believed in it. Because why? It was a common part of the culture. But in 325 AD, there was the Emperor Constantine. And he was beginning to be concerned about these group of people that called themselves Christians. Because what he noticed, he had commented that, how do you defeat a people that when you kill one, 3 of them step in right behind him and say, I'm willing to die as well? Why was that happening? Well, that was the period for the early church history was called the period of martyrdom. Christians were willing to be martyred. Why? For 2 predominantly reasons why. Number one, The early Christians had experienced and seen the resurrection of Jesus, and they realized that the body was just a temporary physical aspect and that it had nothing to do with the eternity of the soul. And because they knew of the resurrection of Jesus, they firmly believed they would resurrect themselves. Secondly was the cultural acceptance of reincarnation, that you never really die. You just set aside this physical body, and then at another time you'll come back into another body is what you'll do. When Constantine realized that politically and militarily people with that belief system were a threat to his political empire, he did something. In 325 AD, he took Christianity, instead of trying to fight it, he actually created Christianity as the official church of Rome. Christianity became a part of the Roman history. It became a part of the Roman Empire. And then he took all of this development of what is called Christians, adopted it as the official religion of Rome, created this council with his own selected bishops, and then began to set out specific rules, all underneath it so he could control the people. It was all about power and control, which is what it almost always is about world dictators, power and control over the masses. At that point in time, he established a decree. Anybody who professed in reincarnation would be immediately crucified on a cross, just as Jesus was. Well, you can imagine what that did. Shifted everything, created a great amount of fear, and within 30 to 40 years, all of a sudden now, Western history no longer believed in reincarnation. And most of our Western belief systems are still a product of what has come out of this early development of the early Roman Catholic Church. Now, that is not a reflection on the Catholic Church today. Yes, there are still some carryovers of that, but it's very difficult to compare the two. We are beginning to understand that life is made up of a whole lot more than just our physical bodies. In fact, the physical body is really, again, as I said, it's just a temporary shell and a vessel that the soul resides within because it wants to have a physical experience. There's a book that I want to introduce you to that was a book that had a profound impact upon my life. And it's called Destiny of Souls by Dr. Michael Newton. And here's the book. I'll put it over on the side. It's Dr. Michael Newton, PhD, Destiny of Souls. Dr. Newton, about 40 years ago, was one of the first psychologists to start doing what is called past life hypnosis regression therapy. When he would just do regular hypnosis therapy with people, helping them go deep down into the subconscious to deal with some of the issues in their lives that they were having trouble getting past, he had found out that he could also take people into more than just early parts of this life. He was able to take them into past lives, and in this book, he was able to step into what is called the period of the life between lives. You die, you go into what is called, the soul goes into what is called the astral plane. It will go through a period of what is called R&R, refocus, reflection, rechanging, getting in touch with your soul family, going through an additional period of education, and then preparing to come back again. What's interesting in Dr. Newton's books is this is not just a bunch of woo-woo theory. This is case studies from thousands of patients that he has had, I should say clients that he has had, that they are able to describe what happens in the period of the life between lives, the in-between period of time. And they describe about how, as a soul, what life is like and how life is comprised of energy, and souls are predominantly energy beings. How the energy takes place, how souls are birthed. Sometimes when necessary, how a soul is basically done away with because it has become so what we would call evil that it is not healthy for it to continue on because the soul itself has refused to make a transition. That's an extremely rare event. But in there, more than anything else, he always talks in the book from the position of what are called case studies. The thousands of cases that he has had of the people who describe these common experiences of what is there. What this sees is it clearly shows us, and it's not just Dr. Newton, because this was about 40 years ago, and there are now numbers, thousands of various psychiatrists that subscribe to this and understand it, and in deep hypnosis can take people back into those same sessions. It clearly shows life is far more than what happens in these physical bodies. And time is only a concept and illusion of the things that we use to perceive of how we walk through these physical lives. Well, one of the things that has come to me that I came to realize is that as a person who considers myself to be spiritually awake, spiritually alert, on a path of what I call an ascension process and moving into an enlightenment, that sometimes when I come back into a reincarnation, I'm coming back into a physical body. And within that physical body is all of the old DNA memory from all the genealogical aspects of that family history. I've had various past lives that have become very, very clear to me. And in this lifetime, what I have come to understand is that what I was here to do, and this is a personal story, this is a personal perspective, I have a very, very clear, deep understanding that I chose as a soul to step into a specific family line to help clear and heal all the old trauma of that family. Why? Because that trauma has an energetic imprint, and it goes beyond the aspect of time. That energetic trauma carries over from lifetime to lifetime to lifetime. And that as an individual soul, I chose to step into this body of Dave Schmidt. But beyond Dave Schmidt, there's a genealogical family history. And in there are wounds and pains and traumas. And what you will find in Dr. Newton's book is when a soul chooses to step into the body, and it's during the 9 months of the pregnancy, that the soul begins to integrate with the memory, the DNA memory of the human body. And it's an integration process where they come, they weave in, they begin to take place, and it develops what we know as our individual personality in this lifetime. But when we took on that incarnation, when we took on all that historical DNA memory, we took on also the trauma, the memories. We also took on the joys and the passions and the good things as well. And we wonder why we have such fears and phobias. Because what we have done is we have adopted them from another lifetime and brought them in. But when the real issue is, I'm here to heal. I'm here to heal and to clear all of that past history. Now, I know this sounds kind of maybe a little crazy for some folks, but I have shared this concept with some of my close friends, and all of a sudden they realized, wow, because here's what I realize. As a human being of Dave Schmidt, that's not who I really am. I am experiencing all the DNA memories of the life, of the what I called the memory of the human being that I chose to step into. Who I really am is that divine being. And when we choose to step into the physical body, we take on the amnesia of forgetting who we really are. So when I have all these pains, all these traumas, all this conflict, all this fear, all this anxiety, that's not who I am. But it is what I have chosen to take on to heal. Course in Miracles clearly talks about there are two minds. There is the divine mind, and that is the divine mind of the divine being that I am, the eternal spiritual soul of who I am. And then there's the human ego that I have chosen to step into. And the human ego becomes the dominant thought process. It is the dominant thought process that we step into. And our job is to clear and heal and undo the human ego. And we are the ones, the light workers, who have chosen to do that. We've chosen to come to planet Earth to step into and help clear and heal all the pains and the wounds of all the what I call energetic imprints of the past lives of this planet. Now, what's interesting, I can go on and on about that. I don't want to go into too much detail, but it's really not that difficult. It's not like I'm having to clear out hundreds or 1,000 past lifetimes. I only need to do one, and they are connected all the way back. And if I just focus on the one that is in front of me, it has what is called an energetic chain reaction of clearing things all the way on down the line. It's been a real passion of mine for about 4 years of my life. I continue to experience that more and more all the time. And it's almost like in the last 2 to 4 weeks, I've taken what is called this catapultic step, stepped up to a whole new complete level of understanding what it means. And I'm experiencing literally the higher vibrations of love and compassion and sympathy and care about people and about myself. Most of our problems evolve around the fact that we don't know how to love ourselves, and we allow fear to become a very dominant part of our lives. Fear is the antithesis of love. It is the opposite of love. Fear is one of the most dominant forces on this planet. And when we step into the human ego, we take on the fear. I want to read from you a couple paragraphs out of A Course in Miracles where it talks about fear. It says, "For to recognize fear is not enough to escape from it, although the recognition is necessary to demonstrate the need for escape. The Holy Spirit must still translate the fear into truth. If you were left with the fear, once you had recognized it, you would have taken a step away from reality and not towards it. We have repeatedly emphasized the need to recognize fear and face it without the disguise as a crucial step in the undoing of the ego. Having taught you to accept only loving thoughts in others, to regard everything else is an appeal for help. And the Holy Spirit has taught you that fear itself is only an appeal for help." We are always called to love. Love is the highest energy form of everything on this earth. I've shared with you some personal stories for me. I share some of these things at the workshop, and it's always interesting how the people can begin to identify with that. When I understand that I am fully and completely, first and foremost, a spiritual being that chooses to temporarily step into a physical body, and this body is not the identification of who I really am, but yet when I step into that body, I have what is called a forgetting and an amnesia. And as human beings, we have a tendency to then to identify with the body and think that's who we really are, when it's not. It's just something I chose to step into to heal. Love is the most powerful healing force that there is. I'm seeing the difference in the people who are attending the workshops. I'm seeing the difference in the comments that are coming from the emails that you are sending me. I'm seeing the difference in the people that I'm beginning to associate with, but most of all, I'm deeply experiencing the difference within myself. When I was with Susan 2 weeks ago, she had said every one of my clients, after the 2 weeks, and she's had over 300 clients, she says they will all say their lives are never the same. I'm one of those that gets to say that as well. I'm truly experiencing a difference because the angelic activation did a very, very deep clearing and healing within myself of assisting clearing this old past lives of the energy of the DNA of the body that I chose to step into. As long as we have physical bodies, we will always continue to struggle with some of the aspects of physicality. But as long as we choose to focus on love and forgiveness, we will always be in the journey of stepping into a new greater sense of wonderment and peace and love in being willing to help change and fix and heal this world. Thank you very much. I look forward to having you join me on the radio program tomorrow night. Blanca will be with me. We'll be discussing more of what was said right here. I know this is an expanding concept for you, but it's interesting because this is some of the stuff I share at the workshops, and the people really grasp it there. because we get to really step into a greater perspective and understanding. A short 25-minute video doesn't allow me to go into the depth I'd like to, but it is an introduction, and it is here to challenge you and to really to try for yourself to understand, who are you? Life is about discovering who we truly are, because inside every one of us, we are the fullness of God. The kingdom of God resides within us. That's what Jesus had to say. It's there within us, all the fullness of the divine love of God. That's who we truly are. Thank you. Love all of you. Hope to see you on the radio program tomorrow night. Okay. Bye-bye.